Today we have two topics for our webinar. Number one, the topic is the ways to start moving to cloud storage for free. The second one is how to present your business online effectively. Many businesses are already disrupted, even before the pandemic, right? So I remembered disruption was the buzzword before the pandemic, but now a new phrase seemed to be emerged. Do you know what is that? If you can just give me some response in the chat. Before the pandemic, the word for businesses is always disruption. Business will disrupt you. But there is a new phrase now that people use, and it's always on the news. Even the Prime Minister uses it. The radio uses it. So you know what's the phrase, everybody? Okay, let me let you in. So the phrase now is called the new normal. Previously, we used to tell businesses that you have to disrupt before you get disrupted now, right? But now all businesses have to embrace the new normal. So everybody's using now. Sometimes I think it's overused, but it is true. Because of this pandemic, we have to function differently. And how do we do that, right? So regardless of that, both these phenomena, disruption and new normal, requires transformation. People say every problem provides an opportunity, right? So if the pandemic is a problem, there must be an opportunity somewhere. For example, so many people became overnight chefs, correct? How many of you became overnight chefs? Suddenly everybody knows how to cook. So the question is, are we fast enough to transform? So that leads us to our topic of discussion today. And that gives me an honor to introduce our speaker for this afternoon. Dr. Frank Peter is a subject matter expert in various fields of digital marketing, including online advertising, social media marketing, digital data-driven decision-making, as well as digital transformation, focusing on HR and small to medium-sized companies. Dr. Frank has helped many companies to get better understanding of what digital means for the organization and how it can benefit their overall business processes. His style has been described as in-depth yet entertaining. Frank is the author of Digital Marketing Tactics for Decision Making, which is also available on Amazon. And he's currently working on his new book entitled Digital Transformation for HR Leaders. So we can't wait to see his new book come out. Dr. Frank has been conducting corporate training and spoken extensively at international conferences and corporate events for over 15 years. His clients list boasts many well-known companies across Asia Pacific and Middle East, including Astro, Asiata, Celcom, Domino's, Genting Resorts World, GNC, Intercontinental Hotel Group, Petronas, and many more. Well, if I have more time, I will go on and on, but this is just a quarter of his biography. So we will know more. We'll know Frank a bit more. So Frank, I'll pass the floor to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So as you can see, I switched cameras, so I look slightly different. Yeah, welcome again to all of you. I'm glad to be with you remotely with really proper social distancing over many kilometers. This is going to be, as Dr. T pointed out, the new normal. So the classroom training face-to-face is not going to happen anytime soon. Quite a number of my clients have contacted me to change arrangements that we had in the past, the arrangements were made in the past for training in the future, to move this into the online world. So that's how it's going to be. So most likely some universities will also move into this because of no choice. That also gives then an opportunity for small and medium-sized businesses. Now, at the moment, many businesses struggle because there's, especially those who have done stuff the old way. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is really from the perspective of small and medium enterprises or small and medium businesses, the struggles that they have in adapting to the new normal, and some tips. This is two parts. Today are some tips on cloud computing, the benefits of it, what it is actually, the benefits of it, and why businesses should go into it, and you can do so for free. And the second part today will be on getting your business online. That's another thing. So if your business is purely brick and mortar, during MCO, nobody's going to go there, obviously. So you have no choice but to visit online presences at this moment. On Monday, we have the second session, and I will talk about some other things, about social media, I think. I will talk so using social media for branding purposes or marketing purposes, and something else, I can't remember. Anyway, so today we will look into going forward with the digital transformation part. So this is what I'm going to talk about today. Otherwise I can't see my screen. So digital transformation for SMEs in a time of crisis, that's the official title for it. And the first part we're going to talk about will be the cloud computing part. A brief introduction as to who you're dealing with. So as you already pointed out, my name is Frank. He already introduced me quite substantially, so I don't have to go too much into it. But you can link up with me on LinkedIn. As you can see, there's a link there, linkedin.com. And just look for my name there. Or you can visit my website. The website is shown further there at the bottom. Now, on that website and that link that you see there, you will also be able to get the slides. So it's drfrankpeter.com/SME. If you scroll down, you will be able to get the slides that you'll be seeing here today. Don't do it now. Do it after the talk. Now you got to listen to me. But no, it's on the website and free for you to take. So what we're going to do first is I want to just clarify a few definitions, stuff that has been going on left and right about different buzzwords that many people use, but that are quite often not used correctly. So those are digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation. Most of these words have been used quite interchangeably, but they're actually quite different from one another. Now, digitization is the process of converting something from an analog state to a digital state. What that means is that, let's say you have you write a letter, handwritten letter with a pen on a piece of paper, and you convert and you scan this letter using a scanner, or you take an image of that scanner of that letter with your camera. That converts the analog letter into a digital format. Then you can send it with a digital way. So the conversion of analog stuff, analog files, filing cabinet stuff, into a digital format with a scanner, let's say converting it into a PDF document, that is digitization. And that's normally the first step in an overall transformation process from a technology point of view. The second word is digitalization, and that is the conversion of processes. So it is not the actual physical conversion of an analog document into into a digital document, but it is the conversion of processes, analog processes into digital processes. A good example of that is now once you wrote your letter, your handwritten letter. In the olden days, you would put it into an envelope, put a stamp on it, put it to a mailbox, and then the mail system will deliver it over a few days, hopefully, on snail mail. That's an analog process. Nowadays, you can scan that letter, means you digitize your letter, you attach it to an email, and you send it via email. That is the digital process. So the conversion or the transformation from analog processes to digital processes, that's referred to as digitalization. And digital transformation is the overall sort of family name for it, the bird's eye view. So that is mostly for companies, but also for personal lives, where you change both processes as well as documents or analog things into digital things, do it on a bigger scale. So that is basically, in a nutshell, digital transformation. Let's want to get this out of the way. The first part we're looking at when it comes to cloud computing is really initially the digitization and then the digitalization as well. let's get into it for cloud computing. So what is the cloud? Many people use the word, nobody really can define it. And that's exactly what the cloud is. And it's very difficult to define. Let me give you an example. So for SMEs, for example, or for small businesses, there was a time I had staff, I had 6 staff at some point, and we all had desktop computers in front of us. We were sitting in one office, one room, partitions, very boring, but everybody had a desktop computer, and all these computers were not connected to one another. So if I wanted to get a file from one of my colleagues, I had to go to that person's desk and ask them, can you email me that file if it's a small file? If it's a bigger file, I will take a little thumb drive, walk over and have that person put that file on the thumb drive. Then I walk back to my desk, put it into my computer, stick it in my computer, and retrieve the image or whatever file I had from that thumb drive. That is a very tedious process. So maybe that takes me 10 minutes. 10 minutes for me, 10 minutes for the other person who load the file on it. So that's 20 wasted minutes for basically non-productive work. So that's how it was in the old days. Nowadays, it is very different. Now you can easily share stuff. And that's what makes the cloud possible. So for the cloud, instead of sharing stuff on your computer, you share it on something that is a bit less defined, but something that is accessible to everybody anywhere in the world. Now, in the olden days, now for storage, for example, I could point at a server. So if you were to come to my office and say, now, Frank, where is that file? I can point at my computer and say, it's in there somewhere. Now with cloud computing, I cannot. I can only tell you the file is somewhere. So cloud computing is basically a storage. For most of it, it's basically a storage that is outside the physical computer in your own premises. So you can store stuff wherever you want in the cloud, how much you want, but it is not inside your office. There are quite a number of pros and cons for it. They're mostly I muted myself by mistake. So this is just a definition of cloud computing based on Wikipedia. So there are 2 things in there that are particularly important. One is it's mostly data storage and computing power, but it is decentralized. So it is no longer in a particular location, but it is decentralized someplace else. The other thing is that it is available to many users anywhere in the world as long as there's an internet connection. Then we go into a bit more details when we talk about the pros and cons of it. So that's basically what it is. So that's what I mentioned. So the cloud computing allows you to move away from files in your computer and make those files accessible to everybody in the world. Let me give you another example for this, just to point this out. So, which is particularly important to the MCO right now. So if you run a company or a small business and all of your files are in those ugly steel cabinets that you can see on that screen, it is very difficult for you to do any work right now because nobody is allowed to go to the office. So if your work requires to pull out certain files, whatever, do something with it and put them back, that work cannot be done. It is also very difficult if the content of certain files needs to be shared between different colleagues. If you have that file on your desk, then your colleague is screwed because it's no longer there. If the colleague doesn't know where that file is, then he or she can't do the work. So that is a bit of a problem. Whereas in the clouds, if your files are moved into the cloud and available through the cloud, then the files can be shared with anybody, whoever wants them. So example of that is if you go to my website later on after this seminar today, the website that you see below, you scroll down, you can download these slides. These slides are currently hosted in the cloud. So regardless of where you are in the world, you could download these slides to your computer at any time of the day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you don't have to email me and ask me, now, Frank, can you send me the slides? It is available based on data sharing. selective sharing. So some pros and cons. One of the big advantages of cloud computing is you don't have to buy your own server rack. So in the olden days, when businesses set up, they wanted to have an IT infrastructure, they had to have big servers that will connect all the computers in the building, or at least in the office. That was huge capital expenditure. You had to buy not only the hardware, but also the software. So you had to buy a license for Microsoft Windows. You had to buy a license for Microsoft Office, one for each computer often, and that's a lot of money that has to come out. With cloud computing, you don't have that problem. The infrastructure, so all the cloud computing servers, they are in data centers all over the world, anywhere in the world. And you don't have to pay for it to set it up. That's already there. The other thing is management. So if you have your own computers in your building, your own server, you need to have IT personnel that handles them. So they do their software update, if anything breaks. So they have to be there by 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that is also manpower intensive. So that costs money as well. For cloud computing, you don't have to do this. The providers for cloud computing will do all this stuff on your behalf. So you don't have to bother. All you need is a device that is internet connected. That's all there is. So it can be a computer, it can be a desktop, it can be a smartphone, it can be a tablet, or anything else. A game console, doesn't really matter. Brings me to the second point, the accessibility and sharing data. That's really the main bonus from the user point of view. Any file that is stored on the cloud is accessible to anybody in the world if you put the sharing rights properly. It's accessible to anybody in the world who is interested in this, or is accessible to only people that you as the file owner allow. The slides that are available on in my cloud storage, they are available to anybody in the world. But I could make it that I only allow, let's say, Dr. T to download the slides and nobody else. So permissions can be set as you require. That allows you to either selectively share data or share it with anybody in the world. So a website is sharing data to anybody in the world without any restrictions. Cloud storage is highly reliable because the vendors, like Amazon, for example, or Google, they put a lot of effort into always updating both their software as well, as you can see the last point, but also the hardware. So the downtime is minimum. Whereas if you have a computer in your office, the power goes out, or there's a fire, even worse. But even the power goes out, then the data are no longer accessible. Whereas for cloud storage, the data are still there. So you could move with the tablet to some area where you have access, or use a battery backup on your phone, and then can still continue. Cloud providers also duplicate your content. So in worst case scenario, now one of the data centers burns down for whatever reason, your data is going to be duplicated in a few other data centers as well. So there's the chance of you losing your data is remote to almost impossible. That's in contrast to if you have a fire in your own computer room. If that burns down, you're screwed. All is gone. And the last part I mentioned, that is the automatic software update. So you don't have to buy any patches. You don't have to hire anybody to set those in. It all can be done automatically. So cloud computing is very, very helpful. The disadvantage, and the main disadvantage from the Malaysian point of view, is it requires obviously internet access. So if you have lousy or slow internet access, then cloud computing is going to be slow. What happens in cloud computing is that all the work that is being done normally on your computer, like word processing and other stuff, is also done in the cloud. So that normally is a lot faster than doing it on your office, on your office desk. But it will help. It's going to be difficult to do if your bandwidth is limited and if the internet speed is limited. There are some ongoing costs. Kindly please mute yourself. You can click on the bottom left on your screen. There's a microphone. If you can click on that to unmute, to mute yourself for those who have not done this. Otherwise, not a moment. That's how Zoom works. The person who is the loudest will get the screen. So if somebody else now would be unmuted and say something, it would override me saying something. So that's why there's a switch in images. So the best would be to, if you could, just to mute yourself for a time being, and later on when we have a discussion, we can go for.
For those of you, for those of you who have your microphone on, if you can just mute it now, there is a button on the left bottom. Left bottom, yes, I think that's great. Thank you very much.
All right, so that was an example of Dr. T overriding me, but now I'm talking louder, so I get the screen again. Now for cloud computing, there is no initial setup cost generally. I'll show you in a moment an easy way of doing that using Google Drive, but there are potentially ongoing costs. So if you scale this up to become very big, then there will be monthly subscription fees or pay-as-you-go fees. I'm going to talk about this in a second. Now, security, I put this under cons. Because some people bring this up, they say, no, if my files are on my computer, I'm safe. But if they are somewhere on some other data center, some other part of the world, people can hack into it. And that's not really true. I mean, there's a remote possibility. But these vendors that have the cloud storage, like Google or Amazon, for example, they make really, really sure that nobody has at least an easy way of hacking into. Whereas the computers that you have, as long as you're internet connected and you don't patch up your Windows software, you are much more at risk of getting hacked into and getting your data stolen. So cloud is actually a lot more secure than having your own in-house server or having your own desktop. One problem you may have is what's called the vendor lock-in. So if you start out with a particular vendor, that is something that needs to be seen before you actually select a vendor. They may lock you in a way that you can't migrate your data to a different provider. So if you ever want to consider getting into the cloud for storage purposes, but also for other reasons, for programming reasons, then think about first and talk to a vendor if the vendor allows you to move to a different provider if you see fit at some point, or whether they lock you in. Okay, getting started to get into the cloud. To set it up for a small business is very, very easy, and it's really free. That is using Google Drive. Now, for most of you, whether you're a business or an individual, you will have already a Google account. Normally, when I have a class, I ask for people to raise their hands if they do not have a Google account. And no hands go up. So everybody has some kind of a Gmail account or anything else. So if you have a Gmail account, you already have automatically access to your own Google Drive with a Gmail account. Now, for a business, it is fairly easy to do. What I would do is I would set up a business email, something like yourcompany@gmail.com. With that, you will have automatically a Google Drive account created for you, which you can use as data storage. You get up to 15 gigs free for data storage. If you need more, then you have to pay as you go. So you can scale this up. But now one way of getting around this is you could also set up Gmail accounts for, let's say, mycompany.finance@gmail.com, and another Gmail account, mycompany.hr@gmail.com. That way you have multiple drives, one for finance, one for HR, one for other things that you may need. So that's one way of scaling up basically for free. You can go up to, as I said, 15 gigs. If you need anything more, then that is fine. Any file that is in your Google Drive can be shared with anybody in the world or just selected. Now, let me go to that part of plan organization of folders. So you need to plan first as to what you're trying to do. Now, the idea is to move from those ugly steel cabinets that only selected people can have access to, and which cannot be accessed right now, to something that is accessible on the cloud, or to everybody in the world, potentially to your colleagues or to clients or to customers or whatever. So you got to think about this first, how you want to structure that. That takes a bit of planning. Once you have that, then you can start by converting your current files from the steel cabinet by simply scanning them. into PDF files and then compress them. Right? It's a good idea to compress files. There are online compression engines. So once you have a PDF file from your people still coming in. Okay, sorry, I'll be back in a second. Still get the ping pong. I'm not sure if you can hear this. I hope not. So the Google Drive. So I wanted to get to that. So you can simply convert your physical files by scanning them into using a scanner into a PDF format. A PDF format, sometimes it's a bit bloated. So you can go online. There are many compression engines for PDF. You load up your PDF that you have created. These online compression engines will make it smaller, and then you use a lot less space in the storage itself. So it takes you a lot longer to fill up those 15 gigabytes. Another thing is also to convert your files from any Microsoft Office files to Google Drive files. So Google has its own version of Microsoft Word, which is called Google Docs. It has its own PowerPoint version. It's called Google Slides. This presentation that you're currently looking at, that is made with Google Slides. So I don't use PowerPoint, I use Slides. And it is cloud-based. This presentation is not hosted on my computer. It is hosted again on the cloud. So I can go anywhere at this moment in the world. As long as I have access to the internet, I can run this presentation, not only from my laptop, as I'm doing right now. I could also do it from my smartphone. I don't have to carry a memory stick. I don't have to carry anything. So that's really the nice thing with cloud storage. So it's a good idea to convert your files from a Microsoft version into a Google Docs version or Google Sheets version or whatever it is, because they don't count towards your storage. So whatever you write in Google Docs does not count towards your 15 gigabyte. So you can write bookloads of stuff in Google Docs, and you're not going to be charged for it in terms of storage. So that's a nice thing to do. Share relevant folders, I mentioned this earlier. So you can share individual files, like what I do with the presentation on my Google Drive that you can have access to. But you can also share folders. You can share your whole drive with others if you wanted to. So multiple people can work on the same project. So let's say hypothetically that now, as a company, you set up just one Google Drive for the whole company, and you have one folder for finance, one folder for HR, one folder for whatever customer inquiries and whatever you want to set it up. Now, people who work in finance with you, they should have access to other documents within the finance folder, but maybe they don't need access to the HR folder. So other colleagues in finance, you can give them specific access to folders within the finance folder, but not within the others. The big boss, he may want to have an overview, or she may want to have an overview of what's happening. So the big boss can have access to all files and folders that are in storage. So you can be really selective. Maybe you have an intern who doesn't need to look at all the stuff, only very, very selected ones, maybe how to make coffee and whatever. So you give the intern only access to a particular file that has your preferred coffee recipe on it. So that makes it very, very easy to allocate resources and allocate access to it. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is SaaS. That stands for Software as a Service. That means that your programs, for example, like Google Docs, Google Sheets, which is the Microsoft Excel equivalent, Google Slides, which is the PowerPoint equivalent, they all run on the cloud. So you don't have to buy a disk like you did in the past. You don't have to buy a disk, hire a disk somewhere, or a real one for proper money, and load it onto your computer to install, let's say, your Microsoft Office or your Adobe Photoshop or whatever else. Now you can do this just simply based on cloud. So there's no software to download. That means also you can work on much smaller computers. You don't have to buy a computer or a laptop that has massive storage capacity. The computer that this presentation runs off has a 120 gig solid state drive, which is 90% empty, because I don't use any storage on my computer. I store everything in the cloud. I do all my work, like my writing of documents, my presentations or whatever. I do everything in the cloud. So I can actually work with a computer that is much smaller, as long as it's set up to the internet. And that is called software as a service, as a first step. Okay, I think that brings me to the first part of the how to get into the cloud basically for free. So if there are any questions, then please feel free to unmute yourself, ask the question, and then please remute yourself. Otherwise, if 50 people talk at the same time, it's like a wet market, so it's very difficult to. So if any questions, please just go ahead and shoot. It's your chance.
Yeah, so now's your chance. Well, Frank shared with us how to use the Google, the cloud to save some of the documents, especially for smaller companies. You can use that for free. There's one person here who is Chia Pi Ho. You have a question? Or anybody has a question, you can ask Frank now.
Okay, don't be shy.
Yep, or else you can just put your question in the chat, then I will probably raise the question to Frank. Otherwise, Frank, I think you can continue.
Okay, then.
The second part, yes. Okay,
all
that's
right,
great.
Then I continue. Okay, going online, that's the second part I want to talk about. So just now I mentioned briefly software as a service. This is so we're going online, doing your work, basically your work processing and everything online through the cloud. This is now going online with your business. So now going online for a business means different things than from the user. I still work with a number of small companies that still send out printed prospectus to their client. Every half year, they have something created, they have it printed on paper, they put it in an envelope, and they send it to their client as a printed catalog. And that's really dinosaur age right now. There are lots of disadvantages of that. First of all, it cuts down a lot of trees. It costs a lot of money to have it printed and shipped. And I know from my own experience, whenever I receive a printed catalog in the mailbox, I look at it and say, interesting, and then I throw it away. There may be some departments and companies that file it for future use. But by right, whenever they do their spring cleaning, they also throw it away. So most of the time, these printed catalogs, they're being thrown away. So it's all the money basically in the bin. The other thing is now, whenever your product is updated, something new comes out, or sizes have changed, or a certain product is no longer available, this printed catalog is totally outdated. So it's obviously the worst of all solutions. An alternative to this is, which I've seen a lot as well, where people make their catalog, still do, but put it into electronic format. So they digitize their printed catalog by making a PDF file out of it. And then they can email it to people. Now, if you were to receive emails from PDF catalogs, what would you do with it? Would you keep it, or would you throw it away, put it into the bin? And from own experience, most of the time, if this is a product for which I have no current use at this particular moment, I just bin it. I don't care. Because if I need something at some point, then I can still look for it. If I get information about a product for which I have no need at this stage, I will not keep that information. And that's probably true for most people, including businesses. So emailing a catalog to clients or potential clients every 6 months or 3 months is also a total waste of time. So the best way, because you reach them at the wrong time, so the best way of doing this is actually going online, putting up a website with all the products and services that you have described on the website. Doing this is very, very straightforward. I'm going to talk about this in a second. But the benefits of this are enormous. First of all, you can put a lot more information on your website. So let's say you're selling handphones, or you're selling pens, a pen like this. If you were to put it into a printed catalog, it goes out, it shows the different color combinations that are available, and that's pretty much it. If you put the same pen on the website, you can actually make a short video out of it, of how it holds in the hand, how it writes, what the texture is of the ink, and all these things. So a video is something that cannot be printed. So you can put a lot of information that is important to a potential customer who's ready to buy something like this, to convince them to actually purchase your product. That is not possible with printed, and that is not possible with an emailed catalog either. So the information that you can put out, not only about your company, about your values, but also about your products and services themselves, is so much more comprehensive. The other thing is that now using a website as your catalog is that you reach people anywhere in the world. I think I have this. Yeah. So you have a global reach for this. So you're no longer limited to people who you send the catalog to or who you email the catalog to, but to people anywhere in the world who may be interested in a pen from you, whatever products or services that you have. So you have a much bigger reach. If you do it properly, then it is very easy to update. So if a particular product is out of stock, then you can just simply remove it temporarily until you have it back. Then you click a button and then it appears again in your product catalog. If you have, let's say, this pen now also comes in blue and yellow and whatever, I can easily update the color combinations that are there. That's not possible with any other method. But it's also easy to scale. So if I have a lot of products, maybe nowadays I only start out with selling pens, but let's say this goes really well, and I branch out into marker pens and felt pens and pencils and all this stuff. So my business gets bigger and bigger. I can easily upscale a website to my needs. But just to give you an example, later on I'm going to talk about WordPress as an easy way of setting up a website. Now, big companies like the Washington Post, like the BBC, they all run on the same platform that I recommend for you to use. So it's hugely scalable for this. And of course, once you have a website, it's fairly easy to market as well. There are free and there are paid versions to market. We're going to talk on Monday about social media as a marketing tool, where I will come back to this. So it's fairly easy to get the word out about the products and services that you have. The website that you have with your products on it, but also with information about your company, that serves sort of as a central hub for all the others, for everybody who comes in and is interested in what you have. So you have a massive reach all over the world. You can very easily update it, and you can very easily set it up. Let's go to the next slide here, hopefully. To set up a website, it is virtually free. There are a couple of things that you need to do, but it is virtually free as a start. The only thing that you need, and that is actually costing you money, is the domain name and hosting of your website. Domain name is not every website by definition is just a string of numbers that computers are able to read. So it is not friendly to humans to remember. I can tell you the actual URL to my website, Dr. Frank, is actually something like 178.168.007.001. Nobody in the world is going to remember that. I just made that up. So nobody in the world is going to remember it. So there is a service that you can have where this number is converted in something that is memorable. So in my case, that number that I just said, whatever the real number is converted into drfrankpeter.com. That is a domain name that you buy based on the number. That will cost you about, I don't know, $10 US a year, something like that. Then you need hosting. Hosting is again somewhere where you leave your website. You could theoretically put your own website on your own server, on your laptop that you're currently sitting in front of. You can make your website there. You hook your computer up to the internet, and you can set it in a way that everybody else in the world can access your website on your computer. Of course, the storage on your computer is limited. The computer has to be on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You have to maintain it and all this. It is a lot of work, and it is very risky in terms of the power going out and so on. So an easy way of doing this is to rent space on somebody else's server. So in my case, all my websites are cloud-based as well, but you can also rent physical server space where somebody else takes care of all this stuff. So I don't have to worry about whether there are new software updates needed for my server. I don't have to worry about whether my server is online, whether the power goes out and all these things. Somebody else will take care of it. And that will cost you, give or take, about, let's say, $5 US a month, give or take. So those are the only costs that you have in running a website. Everything else after that is free. As you can see from the picture here, I highly recommend WordPress. WordPress is a free, what's called content management software. It is freely available. Once you have your own domain and hosting, you can install it. Most hosting providers provide this for free anyways. And you can buy, so you can add lots and lots of functionalities into it, separate functionalities. So one of the functionalities is e-commerce, for example. So you can add contact forms in it, you can add subscription forms on it, you can do video players in it. Now, you name it, you can probably get a plugin or some added functionality into the WordPress template. It's very, very easy to do. A child can do it. There's a slight learning curve, but it is very, very easy to set up. And I'll explain this in a second. One of the plugins that is available for WordPress is called WooCommerce. That's a fully fledged e-commerce plugin functionality. So you can have your online shop with shopping carts, with payment gateways, whatever the whole bells and whistles you can have on your WordPress site for free. The only thing you need to do is upload your products, upload your descriptions, and so on. You can upload products also as videos if you like. So it is super easy to do, very easy to learn. There are tons and tons of tutorials if you get stuck on YouTube. But now, as long as you know how to write a document in Word, on Microsoft Word or Google Docs, if you're a cloud person, now to underline stuff, to bold stuff, to change the font size, as long as you know how to do this, you can build a website on WordPress. It is that easy nowadays. So you don't have to hire any web developer, you don't have to contract this out to others and pay lots of money for it. You can do this internally. If you don't find anybody in-house who can do this, ask your kids or your grandkids. They probably can point you in a direction. For business owners here in the audience, you can also ask students. Some students, I don't know business students whether they know this, but computer science students, they will definitely know this. Just approach university, ask whether you can get contacts of the certain faculty, computer faculty. For the undergrad students, and just point this out now. Here, I'm going to pay you 200 ringgit, 300 ringgit for you to set me up WordPress. And you get a lot of takers for that. So you can do this in the cheap if you don't want to do it yourself. It is, as I said, it's highly scalable. So you can, even if you come to a stage where you have like millions of products, WordPress is still your platform of choice. You can scale this until level. The only thing that you may need to change is your hosting. So that may need to be scaled. As I said, my hosting is cloud-based hosting, so I pay as you go. So if I all of a sudden get tens of thousands of visitors, then my host will automatically scale and bill me for that. And when my visitors go down to the usual 5 a day, then it will scale back down and I only pay a fraction of the amount. The other thing also is that people are worried about WordPress, is it safe? And it's probably one of the safest platforms because so many people work on it. WordPress is open source. So many people work on the platform itself and on the plugins that many people scrutinize it and try to find ways to break in just for learning purposes. And once they find anything, then they will write some extra code to patch up any leak that there might be. So it is not only easy to set up, it's easy to scale, and it is also very safe and secure too. And it's free, except the initial setup cost for domain name and hosting. Everything else after that only costs you your time. And of course, your willingness to learn something to set this up. So there's really no excuse to not go online. Even if you don't have tons and tons of products to sell, even if you have only one product, it is still worthwhile to go online because you can show much more about one product than you could do in just having a prospectus or one-page sheet. You can also direct people. If you go, let's say you go to trade shows, you can direct people to your website right there, right now, rather than giving them a stick. I go to quite a number of trade shows for different business that I have, and now some vendors give me a little pen drive. It says, here, all our products, all our catalogs are on the pen drive, and they think they are so advanced. This pen drive I take, I say, thank you. I never use it because I'm very worried about viruses on that pen drive. A simple way to infect my computer is you put a virus on a pen drive, you give it to me, saying there's some important information on it, I click on it, and I've infected my computer. Now, having a website, having a catalog on your website, that does not that risk for me does not exist. So I'd be happy to look through all your products, through all your catalogs, and see if there's anything that interests me. So it's a lot safer for the user as well. So that's the security part. So there's really no excuse not to do it. As I said, even if you have just one product, put it online, get people to view it, put as much information on it as you deem fit. Any updates can be done immediately and very easily, just through a simple interface that looks like Microsoft Word. You can add in your company details, your company values, and you can update it as you go, as you like. You can add pictures in it on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, whenever you have some time. So there's no excuse actually not to do it. So I think that concludes the first part for the getting a business online in a nutshell. I already overshot my time, I know that. So if you are a small and medium-sized business, so if you need any help with it, don't fret, no help is on the way. So I'll be able to help you with both the processes and strategies for this. Just either get in touch, I have it on the next slide, or visit the website, the link below, for some extra info. I do bring out regular tutorials and some webinars on some of these topics that you might find useful. They're generally free. So if you sign up for the mailing list that is on the website, then I can get you informed as to what's happening. And then last but not least, these are my contacts. So if you want to get in touch by email, that's how it works. But my preference would be that you get in touch with me through LinkedIn. LinkedIn is obviously a social media platform that you may know. Great way to hook up with like-minded people in a similar business vertical or same business vertical that you have, and exchange information. So I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. I spend pretty much no time on Facebook because I rather learn something new from other LinkedIn connections than get entertained on Facebook by some cat videos. That's a personal choice. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Slide there. No, okay. Then if there are any questions, then feel free to unmute yourself, ask the question, or use the chat if you want. Ask your question, and then you can see maybe I can see whether I can answer it, or maybe somebody else in the audience can answer it.
Yeah, Frank, thank you very much for sharing with us. There are actually two questions from the earlier sharing is about the clouds.
Okay.
Yeah, I will put it now in the chat so that you have a clearer picture. It's actually from Thai Jailer. The question is how to activate cloud. So that is I don't know. Jailer, are you a him or she? I'm not sure. So that's your question, Jailer, right? It's about how to activate cloud. So that's the question for you, Frank. Does it make sense, the question, if you can?
Yes. The question makes very much sense, how to activate. So the introduction that I gave using Google Drive as a cloud service, there's nothing to activate. It's already done for you. So as long as you have a Gmail address, then you already have Google Drive. You can go to, let's say you use a Chrome browser. If you use the Chrome browser, in the top right corner in your Chrome browser, there will be something that looks like a checkerboard. So 9 dots, arranged in lines of 3 dots, 3 dots, 3 dots. If you tap on that, the menu gonna pop down, and Google Drive will be on that menu. So you click on it, and there you are. You have it. That's yours. You can then move your files in it. You can create new folders. You can upload your existing files from your computer into it one by one, and so on. So you can really play around with that. With that, automatically, you also have access to software as a service. So you have access to Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides, and some others that you might find useful. That all comes with it. So there's really nothing you have to buy, nothing you have to do. The only thing you need to have is a Gmail account, and that's it. You can also download it from the App Store if you're a mobile person. So there's Google Drive available for Android phones, and I believe it's also for iPhones. That's basically it. If you are, okay, so that is the easy form, the easy way. If you are a larger company, then of course Google Drive is not enough for you. Then you have to have something that is bigger, that you have to purchase. So then you have to go to a vendor, for example, Google. So Google has its own Google Cloud. Amazon has their own cloud service. Microsoft has Microsoft Azure. There are a few others available that do this. I wouldn't go with the small players. I would go with the big players because they're normally more reliable, I think. So they're depending. They have their local retailers here, their local sellers here in Malaysia as well. You get a contact with the vendor, get a quote, and so on. What happens normally there is that they have to activate you first. So you have to decide what kind of package you want. They'll activate you for it, and then you get access. You get a dashboard like what you would for Google Drive. You get a similar dashboard where you can move your files from your computer into the, let's say, Microsoft Azure cloud or the AWS cloud or whatever it might be. So in terms of dealing with it, it is very easy. As long as you can move files from one folder to another folder, you can work the cloud. There's really no more scalable than this. So for small companies or individuals, Google Drive is more than enough. For bigger companies, you have to contact the vendor. In terms of payment, quite often it is what's called a pay-as-you-go service. So if you use very little resources for a period of time, then you pay little. If you use more resources for some reason, then you pay more. So it's not a fixed cost every month. It is really a pay-as-you-go service, which is, just to give you an example of how this will work. If you go to, let's say, Google Drive and you scale this up, so your 15 gigs is not enough for you. You have to use a bit more. Then it's like, so then you pay a fixed cost, but that stays like that because you increase your storage. Even if you delete files, you still have to pay that monthly amount. But if you go for any, let's say, a public cloud, then you only pay for what you need. So if you remove certain files from your cloud storage, and you use less storage, then you pay less for it. Oh, sorry, I was a bit long-winded. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, if I can interrupt you, Frank. You have a few more questions. If you look at the chat group, this is from Tan Chi Seong. Hi, Dr. Frank. As we all know, collaboration is quite important since we are moving all our work online. Can you recommend some online collaboration tools to ease out our work in daily routine in SME? In my past experience, I only recognize Notion, so the Monday.com, both are quite nice. Nice, but they're quite expensive as well. Haha. So what do you think?
Yeah, I like the haha part. I also don't like the expensive part. Now if I can get something that is good and low cost or free, I'd rather go for that. Now for collaboration tools, as I mentioned, the cloud, that's really your collaboration tool. So for any files, so let's say you and I were to work on a proposal. And in the olden days, what you need to do is, maybe I write a draft and then I email it to you. And you go through it and say, well, I don't like this, I don't like that. You edit it. Then you send it back to me. And I say, well, I don't like that part, it doesn't sound good. So it goes back and forth, it takes forever. If you do this with the cloud, we put that document, so maybe I write a draft in the cloud, and you can basically watch it as I write it. So you can see what it is, you can do your own edits in real time, I can see those. Maybe your edits show up in green, my edits show up in red, and then later on we can discuss which one we want. So we can have that proposal done in 10 minutes. So that is the advantage. So cloud-based, whether it's Google Drive or any other, I'm not married to Google. I'm not a shareholder either. I have not really. I don't get any monetary benefits from Google. It's just something that I use and that I'm very comfortable with. So for collaborative purposes, that's a great thing to have. The cloud itself, cloud storage, to share files and others, to work together on different things. Now Zoom is free, the one that you're currently using. It's free for up to 4 people. And you can have meetings only for, I think, up to 40 minutes. So I have a license for it where I can keep on talking 24 hours a day, but it's limited to 100 people for this particular license. That costs me $15 a month. So it's also very affordable. And this is a nice tool as well. If you have a smaller group, now Zoom itself has a whiteboard in it. So I can actually draw something, I can type something. At the moment I show you a screen that you can see at the moment at the back. Well, that is the screen sharing, but I can switch this off. Let's see what's going to happen. Okay, so now I've switched off that screen. But I also have, if I wanted to, a whiteboard here. Let's see if okay, never mind. I have to re-enable it. Some of the stuff has been disabled. I have a whiteboard, so I can bounce back and forth ideas as well. I can share my screen with you. So if I work on something at the moment, I can show it to you wherever you are in the world as a collaborative tool. Let's say some graphic design, whatever, and you can then say, well, I don't like that green, I like the red better, and so on. And then I can work on it in real time, and you can do this as well. So all these things are free or almost free tools that you can use. If it's just a one-on-one conversation with Zoom, it's free. It's only if you have a bigger group of more than 4 people, or you want to have a meeting lasting longer than 40 minutes. Even if we have, let's say the 2 of us, we have a one-to-one meeting that is with a free Zoom, which is longer than 40 minutes. After 40 minutes, we get locked out, and then after that, we just log back in. So we have a 10-second delay in there where we don't see each other, and after that, we have another 40 minutes to go. So it's really not something that is prohibitive.
Okay. If I can interrupt you there, Frank, for
sure.
Just a minute. Yeah. Now it's already, I'm very conscious of the time. It is 8 minutes past 3. If any of you who feels that you have some other engagement, please feel free to leave the meeting. Otherwise, please just stay on because we have quite a few more questions. If you can just wait, please wait for a while more. Otherwise, we will continue with the questions. All right. Frank, there's one more question here. If you look at the chat, it's from Eric. It's also about cloud.
Could you read it to me?
Now, why use a cloud can reduce the disk of storage in computer? If we sync file, for example, documents to cloud, the files we get, we still be downloaded in the disk, right? Okay, let me see whether you understand the question. Yeah.
I know what he means. I know.
Okay.
I know what the question means. So the thing is, let's say I write a Word document. So let's say I have a computer. I have Microsoft Word installed on my computer, and I write a Word document. So it is all on my computer, and then I shift this document to my Google Drive. Then it exists in duplicate. So the original, it's no original, no fake. One version is on my computer, the other version is in my Google Drive. Now, if I delete it on my computer to save some space, it is still on the Google Drive. So when I go to my Google Drive, I double click on the icon for that document, that particular document, it shows up on my computer, but it is still stored on Google Drive. So if I do any amendments on it, let's say I edit it, there's no need to even click a save button. It's automatically saved on the cloud. That is what's called software as a service. So the software, the Word editing software runs in Google Drive itself. It does not run on your computer. So it does not. You don't have to have Microsoft Word installed. You don't have to, by right, keep the file. So whenever in a scenario where let's say I had a lot of files on my computer and then slowed down my computer. What I did was I pushed all these files and folders to my Google Cloud. And then I deleted it on my computer. So that freed up a lot of space. My computer is a lot faster. Whenever I need any of these documents, I can go to my Google Drive and look at it there. It is no longer stored on my computer. It is now stored someplace else. I have no idea where it is. It is the cloud, whatever that means. So it is some physical location. Obviously, it's not up in the cloud, but I have no idea where it is. No clue. But it is accessible to me anywhere I want, as long as I have an internet connection. So did that answer? I'm not sure if that answered the question, but whatever you. So if you look at the document in the cloud, it stays in the cloud. It is just visualized to you. It's not downloaded.
Okay, so I hope that answer your question, Eric. Okay, okay. So if any more questions, Eric, if you're not clear, you can please write in the chat room. But at the moment, there's one more question here, Frank. This is from Aiza. So Aiza said, I have a question. Often SMEs fail to transform from conventional working environment to digital working environment. It is due mainly because of the high illiteracy rate among the employees and lack of agility among employers. From your perspective and given your broad experiences, what would be the advice for your clients? Suppose you need someone as such. If you meet someone as such. In other words, how would you approach them? So this question is also supported by some other people who would also like to ask similar question. Does it make sense to you, Frank?
Oh, that makes perfect sense. I love it. This really sums up a lot of the work that I do. You have two parts. You have either a very inflexible management that still lives in the old days, and you can have that. You can have a workforce that is very much pushing for it, for the transformation part to become more digital, and often it's the management because it's something that they don't understand. They don't understand what digital means. They don't understand what cloud means. They don't understand what information sharing means. And if they don't understand something, they're not supporting it. So that is one of the main things that I have. From the workforce point of view, that they are digitally not literate, that's not always the case. And those are usually easy. They're willing to learn. So let's stay with the workforce first that you think is digitally illiterate. Now, many people here in Malaysia have smartphones, and as long as you can, if you have a smartphone and you know at least some apps, how to use some apps, you're digitally literate. And it also shows that you're willing to learn how to use this. So training, simple training will help a lot. I'm working with a big food and beverage manufacturer here, very large international one, to educate some of their staff to get them a bit more computer literate. But that's normally an easy job to do because they are eager to learn this quite often. It's very rare that you have people who say, "Well, this is something for the younger generation, and I'm too lazy, I'm too old to learn this." This is very rare that this happens from a practitioner point of view. However, this argument that now I'm too old for this, that you hear a lot in the upper echelons, at the higher ranking staff. I spoke with company owners. Quite often those are Chinese-run companies, patriarchs run it, they're family-owned. They're all a bit older, and I talk to them about digital marketing and getting business online and getting advertisements online and so on. And they refuse. They say, well, if I put money into an advertising, I want to go down to the mama, I want to pick up the newspaper, I want to open up the newspaper, and I will say, there's my ad. And if I switch on my computer, I can't see my ad, so I don't know if it's there. So that is their mindset. Then the next thing they say is, now, once my son takes over, once my daughter takes over, they can take care of this. Then my response normally is, now, once your son takes over, your daughter takes over, your company may no longer be there because you're being left behind. So it's for the top echelons, it's a lot more difficult because there's a lot of fear level in there. Fear of the unknown, fear of giving up control. Part of digital transformation is not. But the main part of digital transformation is not about technology. It's about sharing of information, sharing of data, collecting data and sharing of data to everybody who has an interest in it. And by sharing of data and people within talking to one another, that flattens the hierarchy in a company. That's just how it is by definition. So whoever is a manager or senior manager or whatever, they have to give up some control. And that is often not something that they're comfortable with. That's what holds them back. So it is really up to them, the top level management, the C-suite, that has to put the foot down and say, you as managers or senior managers, you have to drive this, and you have to report to me the progress on it, and then put some pressure on those. And then coming with the boots on the ground are fairly easy to take care of. So it's a mindset change that comes first. Before you buy any equipment, any new shiny computers, it's a mindset change that has to come in first. That's the difficult part that comes with it. I don't know if that answered that question. If not, then please let me know.
Yeah. Thanks, Frank. There's one more question by Yiding. It says that Yiding enjoys how you address on training and education. by say educating them. So I'm not too sure who you refer to as them, the employer or the employees. But I did like to ask about how we do this amidst the pandemic, meaning that everybody is in the lockdown, MCO, when we cannot meet face to face. So how do we do this training and education online? Probably that's what the question is.
Yeah, online. I mean, that's by now that's a given. But what I mean by training and education, that's you will have people who are comfortable with digital, and you will have people who are not comfortable. Those are normally called digital natives and digital immigrants, and that has nothing to do with age. Now, I've spoke to old people in their late 70s, sometimes 80s, that are very quick on their phone. They, my dad, for example, when he passed away at 85, he ordered his medication online. He booked his travels online. He paid the bills online. He used his phone for WhatsApp and Skype and all these things. He was digital native, although he was 80 over years old. But then you also have a few people who are young and either don't have the opportunity, or they don't have the interest, or they simply don't want. And those would be still digital immigrants. So it's not an age thing, it's really a thing of whether people want or not. But all of these can be trained. I mean, all of this is teachable. You start out from the beginning. For those who have no clue, the only thing that people need to know or need to have is the willingness to learn. If people say, I don't want to learn anything, then those are often a lost case. Sometimes we've tried that with some of the HR departments I work with, put some pressure on it, get some counseling. But if they're still stubborn, then at some point they're going to be phased out. And only then they realize that it was a bad decision. So everybody can be trained. You know, I'm a corporate trainer. There are many others around, so that's how we earn our living. So everybody can be trained from the boots on the ground all the way to the C-suite level. I do a lot of C-suite training. Everybody, as long as they're willing to listen, willing to have an open mind, and are willing to learn, it can be done. It's not an issue. There was one thing. Then you said, oh yeah, how it's going to be conducted. Don't you love these online trainings, online learning? It's not nice for a trainer, because for a trainer, in a room, if I have a full room of people, there's some energy there. So I sort of absorb some of that energy, which I really enjoy. Here I talk to a camera. I can't even look. Whenever I look to the screen, I look down. So I look at a camera that is up in front of me, so I don't even see the screen. So it's a bit boring for me. But from a participant's point of view, there are no distractions. So there's nobody coming in the room. There's nobody coming to a workstation and then can you give me a pen? Can I get this file from you? And so on and so on. So there are very little distractions for it. You can sip your coffee. You can sit there in your underwear if you like to. I shouldn't say that, but I have a shirt on top. I have actually shorts. I only wear shorts and barefoot at the bottom because nobody can see it. So that makes it a bit more of a relaxed environment. So online training is not as bad as some people say it might be. It's a bit impersonal, but it is still probably the new normal that we have to face.
Okay, Frank, thanks for the answer. But then this, I think Yiting was trying to ask, how do we convince the SME owners? So it's not too much about training or about exposing or educating the employees, but then now the challenge is how do we convince the owners?
The owners, convincing the owners is one of the more difficult parts. Now, some are very much for it. Others are very reluctant. I mentioned this earlier with the patriarch that said, "Now, once my son takes over or my daughter takes over, they can deal with it." It's very difficult to get into those people's head. They will have to suffer first sometimes. I mean, that's really the worst case scenario. They have to suffer first and see that there's a reduction in business, or they have to see that their competitors are going with the times, becoming future-proof, and they lag behind. One of the things that's, when I speak to SME owners or other business owners, the few feedbacks I normally get, and one is they don't understand it. So then it's education. So I have to explain to them what it means, the digital transformation, what it can achieve for the company. Right? On Monday, we have another part where I talk a bit about remote working and gig economy. That is one way of SMEs to save money by saving on staff, on permanent staff. So the digital transformation, the whole purpose of a digital transformation is not to buy new shiny objects. It is to provide better customer service at the end at a lower cost. That's all it is. So the whole scenario of a transformation program is not for the transformation per se by itself. It is really to stay competitive. And competitive means now you want to be seen by as many customers as possible. You want to sell as much stuff, and customers nowadays obviously have choices. So they can go online. If I want to buy, go back to the pen. If I were to be a customer and I'm looking for a pen, I just go online, and I have, I don't know, tons and tons of websites that I can choose my pen from. And if your SME makes pens or sells pens and you're not there, then I'm not going to buy my pen from you. The other thing is that if I'm a customer and there are 10 different vendors or 10 different people or 10 different companies online who sell this pen, identical pen, I will go for the cheapest option. So that's what customers are, including myself. I look for the cheapest option. If it's free, I take it. If there are different prices, if it's the same item, I go for the cheapest price. Simple as that. So that's what customers want. They want to have it easy and they want to have it cheap. And for a company, the digital transformation program is simply to optimize all their internal processes to make them more efficient so they can offer their products cheaper and to more customers. That's all there is to digital transformation in a nutshell. So this is something that company owners have to understand. There is not necessarily a lot of money involved. Now, I mentioned earlier, bringing for example, your collection of pens online costs you very little. Except some time, some time for somebody to set it up. But in terms of money, it costs you very little. Putting your files online onto the cloud is also fairly cheap for a small company, right? If you need more space, you pay more, but it is also fairly cheap. So it's not the cost that is prohibitive. No. So education, if I have an SME owner, they have normally two things. One is, no, I don't know what it is, and it's going to be too expensive. And both of these things are not true. I tell them what it is and why it needs to take place. It is really to make your business processes more efficient and more cost effective, cheaper. So you save money. So you can offer your product at a cheaper price. The other thing is to make it easy for your consumer to buy your product or service. And for that, you need to be online. But if you ask around, if you do a bit of market research yourself as a business owner or anybody else, if you ask around, now where do you buy your stuff, especially now during MCO, people buy online. I have a neighbor here where I live. She never went online. She told my wife. She never bought anything online. Now during MCO, she buys everything online. No, toiletries, food, you name it, she buys it online. She bought some furniture online. She really got a hang of it. So furniture shops, brick and mortar furniture shops will lose out on this. People who sell furniture online will gain from this. So in order to address an SME owner or a decision maker, those are basically my two ways of getting into their head.
Yeah, Frank, thank you again. I'd like to just ask you, this is a personal question. I'm just wondering if, let's say, if you want to convince the SME owners, does it make sense if, let's say, I just choose to go on some website like Lazada and Shopee to just market my goods or my products? What do you think about that?
That's also something that's a very valid question. So I get this asked quite a bit as well. Now there are two thoughts to it. Of course, now Shopee, Lazada, and the likes, they reach a lot of people. Everybody goes there and looks for it. But now let me ask you, if you wanted to buy a camera, but you're not quite sure what you want to buy, and if you go to Shopee, for example, or to Lazada to look for cameras, you'll be bombarded by, I don't know, 20,000, 30,000 camera listings there. It is just too overwhelming. So if you know exactly what you want in terms of camera, then you may go to Shopee or Lazada or the equivalent or any other platform. So the problem is that if you are a seller of cameras, your product is diluted out. So if let's say I sell pens, so will be hundreds of others, including lots of vendors from China who probably sell this pen cheaper than I can. So I'd be one of many. So I'd be diluted out as a provider, as a seller, and I'm difficult to be found. That is one thing. The other thing is, for every pen I sell, I have to give Shopee or Lazada or whatever platform a commission. So they collect the money on my behalf. If somebody buys the pen, they collect the money and they'll deduct their commission, and I get the rest paid to my account. So they obviously take a bite out of it. The alternative to this is I can set up my own website. I can market my website with all the pens that I have, and then use, for example, social media or any other platform, if other platforms paid or free, to drive traffic to it, of people who are interested in buying a pen. There's no more distraction. All the pens on that website are mine. There's nobody else there. So people don't compare. If I do this right, and I put proper, again, it boils down to education, I put proper description as to how good this pen is, what it can do, what it cannot do. I'm honest about it. Maybe I have a short video of how to use the pen. Else it is. Then I will create a kind of trust to a potential buyer. That trust is not being developed on one of those mall platforms like Shopee or Lazada. It's just grab and buy, put in shopping cart and buy. That's it. Whereas on the website, you have a bit more trust that is being developed. So if I can do this right with an online presence, I can actually sell this pen for twice the amount I would sell it on Shopee, because I have created the trust on my website. People know if the pen doesn't work, they can return it. If they have questions about the pen, they know who to ask, and so on. That is often not possible on a platform. So if I have, let's say I buy a pen on Shopee, and it doesn't work, or I don't know how to use it, I don't know who to ask. Now, if Shopee has its own helpline, obviously, but now if I call to Shopee service line and ask them, can you tell me how to use this pen? They also don't know. So they would then have to ask the vendor. The vendor probably doesn't care because I still on into place and so on. So it's totally different thing. If I want something where I need some help with, where I'm not quite sure whether this is good for me, normally those are higher value goods, I would go to individual website. Then I don't have to scroll around a lot. I know I go to a website that is properly done, where I can ask questions and then buy from them as well, because I know I get the after sales service as well. If I know exactly what I want, and it's something that is not out of the world, like a cheap pen, I will go to Shopee and buy it there, because it's cheap. I'd save some money. Hopefully that makes some sense.
Yeah, I figure if you, through that, probably you get better CRM, customer relations management, if you are have your own website.
Yes.
And also to go back to Yiting's question about how to convince the SME owners, I'm just thinking, if I'm talking about me, we, the younger ones, if we want to try WordPress ourselves, to design one for ourselves with some of the products of the company, and try to impress our boss with what we can do with WordPress, probably that will be more effective. I don't know. This is just something that I'm thinking.
Sure, that can be done. WordPress has two versions. The one I mentioned earlier is what's called self-hosted. So that would be really your domain name. So my website that you can see below, Dr. Frank Peter, is also WordPress hosted. All my websites are WordPress based and cloud hosted. So what you see is really the domain name .com as the web address. For that I have paid for. I also pay for the hosting. It's a small amount. I mentioned this earlier. If you really don't want to pay any money at all, WordPress also has a free version. But then the name would be drfrankpeter.wordpress.org. So there still is that WordPress in there. You may have seen this for others as well. So something.blogspot.com or something.blogger.com. Those are free hosted platforms. They're free. Google also has this as Google Sites. So they also have, you can build a free website on Google Sites, but it will still have the word Google somewhere in there. So if I'm a customer and I would come across a business that tries to sell me some goods, and I see that they are on a free hosted website, then I think, well, they're quite cheap, Charlie. If they can't even afford the few dollars a month to host the website, then I'm not sure if I can trust them. So that's a drawback with that. But you can build something on, let's say, WordPress.org for yourself. You can take a name, whatever you like, and show it to the boss, just to see that's how it could be if we were to go real live. And then if the boss says, that's not too shabby, let's go for it. Then you could transfer to a proper hosted account with your own domain name and so on. But it's a good start, yeah. Use a free service as a start, just to impress the boss, and then move up once the boss says okay.
Frank, if you can share with us, like how much is it to subscribe to WordPress that with that your own domain name?
WordPress is free, so it has no cost to it. What you need is you need to register your domain name. So in my case, it's drfrankpeter.com. I registered that domain name with a naming service, the domain name service. There are plenty out there, so I can recommend some, but there are plenty out there. Go with the bigger one. Like GoDaddy is a bigger one. I think mine is registered with GoDaddy. They're also fairly cheap. But GoDaddy only for the domain name, not for the hosting. They also provide hosting, but I don't host with them. They are a pain in the ass with that. But they are good for domain names themselves. You can go to GoDaddy.com and type in whatever name you're looking for, and then GoDaddy will tell you that's available or not. If it's available, it tells you how much it costs. So that's probably something like $10 a year, something like that. Then you need the hosting account. And hosting I use a different company. Google has its own hosting, but I couldn't get it to work. Amazon has its own cloud hosting. So I work with, I go with a different company that does cloud hosting. That costs me, I think, about $5 or $6 a month. But all my sites are hosted on that particular account. So it's not just limited to one website, it's multi-sites in this case. So it's very affordable.
Okay, thank you. I think now it's already 3:30. Shall we take one more last question, Frank?
Sure. I got nowhere to go.
Probably we can still take one more last question, and this question is from someone who's really interested with your conversation this afternoon. She's still eating, so she has this question now. If you can look at the chat, say sorry for extra question. I don't think you have to apologize for the question. So her question is: while everyone is going online, I think what's bothering is how to really bring traffic to our website, like WordPress, and how do we also manage our CRM, as many SMEs are operating in their advantage of geographical location. So actually there are two questions embedded in one. So Frank, would you like to take that question?
Sure. So the first part of the question is how to get, once you're online, how to get traffic to it. That's a good point. Now, you can have the most beautiful website in the world. If nobody comes to it, no use. So we're going to talk about it Monday. So try to make time on Monday and join us. I'm going to talk about social media marketing a bit. That will show a bit about how to market products on social media, but also to use social media as a funnel to come to your website. So I'm going to defer that to Monday. Hope you can make it. If not, I should also mention this. All these sessions are recorded. If I haven't messed it up, they will all be recorded, and the webinars will then be on the Xiamen University website somewhere, or on my website as well. So if you miss on Monday, then you can go to either Xiamen website on Tuesday or to my website on Tuesday, and it should be there for you to consume. Now, the second part was
how do we manage CRM as SMEs are operating in the advantage of geographical location? I think traditionally SMEs, they rely very much on location, which is the physical location, very much on that. So now you're talking about digital space. So the question is, how do we manage the SMEs, the CRM, sorry.
Okay, CRM, because it's cloud-based, you can have, a website, let me just take a step back, sorry. A website, obviously, it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all around the world. So if there is somebody in, let's say, in Germany, interested in your product, they may contact you. But there are 6 hours time difference to it. So if they contact you, you don't have anybody there. Now, one way of dealing with that would be a chatbot. You can have, if it makes sense for the size of your company, you can train your own chatbot. Otherwise, you can use something as simple as Facebook Messenger as a very simple chatbot. If you have, so that's very easy to set up. So even if they message you at now, what would be like 2 a.m. in the morning here, and you are not on your computer to answer that question, you would still have an automated response that would go out to a potential customer telling them you're not at the computer at the moment, or it can answer simple questions, depends on how the chatbot has been trained. That's one thing. If you're a bigger company, then you could hire people in different time zones. So yeah, obviously there are 12 time zones in the world, so you have one here and one in 12 time zones, sorry, 24 time zones. Excuse me. You have one representative every 8 time zones. So you have 2 others, one here and 2 others, and +8 and -8. And they can have access to all your product descriptions through cloud. So you keep all your boilerplates, your product descriptions, whatever, in the cloud. Somebody calls the agent in their area, let's say in the US or wherever it is. That agent can just simply pull out the spec sheet and can answer that particular question that the potential customer has. So it will also allow you to go global. You don't have to hire a full-time agent. Now, because on Monday we're also going to talk about the gig economy, where you hire people on a per gig basis. So you could have a customer service agent sitting in California and only pay that person on a per use basis. So that person could be your face of your company for US customers. So you don't have to stay up middle of the night to answer their questions. That's for customer relations management. If you look for a more automated system, again, if I go back to Google, I use Gmail for my CRM as well. I have 2 different Gmail accounts. One is for personal use, one is for business use. The business use, I have a CRM plugged in. There are extensions available for Gmail for customer relation management. You can look them up. There are a few available. I can't remember the name of mine. But you can contact me if you want, and I can give it to you. That allows me to group customers depending on the stages as to where certain projects are, and so on and so on. So it's really a CRM management, but for email in this case. Did that answer the question?
Did it answer your question? Did Dr. Frank answer your question? I'm just wondering if Yiting is still around. It's okay. I think if any, yeah. So she responded. She said yes. Thank you. It's already about 3:40. 40 minutes past 3. What we have done so far, we started 10 minutes past 2. So we had 50 minutes of sharing session and a 40 minutes of question and answer session. So I guess people are more interested to ask you questions. I think, I don't know, I think the participant today seems to be a bit shy of asking questions orally, but definitely they have a lot of questions in the chat room. I think it is really good that we have all these questions coming, and we can certainly learn more from the questions, right? And get more clarification from the chat room. So from Frank as well. So I guess we will come to an end. We will end this session today. Let me see. Frank, thank you for all the tips that you shared with us today. I am currently using Google Drive, and I like how you are mentioning the word free a couple of times, which is really good, because all of us like free things. So thank you very much for recommending some free tools for us to use, some practical tools for us to use. I've not tried WordPress before, probably because I don't have a business myself. So probably if I need one, I'll just have to explore if I need to have my own website and see whether it works for me, right? So I hope everybody learned something in this webinar today. For next week, Monday, Frank already shared with you and also gave you a bit of teaser what he's going to talk about next week. So again, the two topics next week will be on how to utilize remote working and the gig economy to save costs. So I guess this is very, very relevant to SME owners, how to save costs. I think that is a very relevant topic to be discussing now. Second thing is how to use free social media with a long-lasting customer acquisition strategy. So some of the questions are already, Frank already tried to answer some of the questions, but I guess next week on Monday, we will be able to discuss a bit more. Right, Frank?
Yeah, definitely. On Monday, I'm going to talk a bit more about those two other topics. As you can see, there's a theme in there. It's either free or low cost. That's something that is quite important at the moment. Many businesses are suffering, including myself. Training, what I do, corporate training, is also for many companies put on hold. So webinars is a great way of passing time and getting still something useful out there. So I hope I see you on Monday then.
Okay, see everyone on Monday. Bye, and thanks for following us. See you again. Take care and be safe.